Open your eyes to the steppe. This is the story of Temujin, the boy who, as a man, will be called Genghis Khan. If you stay to the end, you will see how, from an abandoned family and a handful of allies, a kind of order is built that keeps working even when the leader sleeps. You will understand why 3 short commands can stop panic, how a network of relay stations makes a letter run faster than fear, and how the killing of envoys at Otrar triggered an avalanche no one could stop. But first, a boy, a river, and a yoke. A cold night, water up to the waist, wooden clamps on his neck. Temujin stands in the current, trembling, but he doesn't cry. This is not a test of courage, it is captivity. The Taichiut fixed a yoke on him so he would forget what the sky looks like. He will escape thanks to one brave hand that loosens the knot, and his own legs that run before the mind can ask, "Can I make it?" He returns with almost nothing, but with a thought that will stay forever. A solitary man is brittle. A network of people and rules endures. It is dawn. The air smells of smoke and goat's milk. In the tent, Hoelun sets bowls on the ground. There are few words because there is little food. Yesuge, Temujin's father, did not return. It isn't a rumor, it truly happened. On his way home, he stopped for a feast among the Tatars, something between a wedding and a grand banquet. Someone handed him kumis. The poison did the rest. After his death, the clan left Hoelun alone with her children. What remained? A mother, several children, 2 horses, a few bows, and a hunger that doesn't need to shout to be heard by all. When there is little, and it must be for everyone, the smallest gestures weigh the most. Begder, the elder half-brother, takes too much from the bowl. It doesn't end with words. 2 arrows. A silence heavier than a storm. Temujin learns a lesson he will never forget. Without clear law, chaos devours its own. The enemy smells weakness. The Taichiut sees Temujin and fit the yoke. They make him look at the ground. At night the guards fall asleep. Someone in the camp loosens the bonds. The boy slips into the water and disappears into the dark. It isn't a miracle. It is one person's help and a decision to run. After that night, Temujin stops counting on fortune's mercy. He starts counting the people he can rely on. First, Bo-Orchu, a boy as thin as an arrow, good with horses who sees farther than others. Then Jelme, steady, sure, the one who keeps a hand on the wound until you feel a pulse again. Later, Mukali and Subutai. Armies come from such meetings, not from coats of arms. The time also comes for an old promise. Berta was pledged to Temujin when he could barely reach the stirrup. They marry, soon after the Merkits raid at night and abduct Berta. Temujin doesn't pretend to be a lone hero. He seeks an alliance, to Togrul, lord of the Karite, one-time companion of his father. He reminds him of brotherhood. Jamuka, a friend from youth, joins as well. The 3 strike the Merkits and return with Berta. It is the first hard proof that a network of allies and a clear goal weigh more than one chieftain's pride. Soon, a son is born Yochi. Across the steppe, a question circulates. Whose is he really? Temujin cuts it short. He is my son. Not for poetry, for order. The family must endure. Without a stable tent, you cannot assemble a camp, and without a camp, you cannot keep people together. An old comrade becomes a rival. Jamuka gathers a coalition. Taichiut, Naimans, the remnants of the Merkits. At Dalan Baljut, Temujin loses. Dust, shame, retreat. What then? Instead of hunting for culprits, he hunts for repeatability. Too many accidents, too little rhythm. Too much first come, first served. Too little, we go together, we return together. Here the backbone of his order is born. He introduces the decimal system. Arban, 10, Jagun, 100, Mingan, 1,000, Tumen, 10,000. In each 10, mixed clans, so a cousin doesn't drag a cousin, and private accounts die at the threshold. Commanders by merit, not by name. Order short, so fear doesn't have time to swallow them. Halt. Right. Return. Drums keep the pace when panic tries to knock people off rhythm. Spoils. Only after it's over. Whoever rummages in the chest during the action loses the spoils and his own goods. 3 such cases are enough for even the hot-headed to start counting coolly. Chaos pays usury. Order pays interest daily. Rules need hands. Mukali commands with calm. Subutai learns the land like a map without charts. Jelmi lifts what bleeds. And Jebi, the arrow. He once wounded Temujin. The old world says, cut him down. The new order asks, how did you hit? If the answer is good, the man stays. Vengeance gives satisfaction. Talent wins wars. A kurultai is held, an assembly at which Temujin takes the name Genghis Khan. It is not an ornamental title. It is a contract. From now on, the law is one. The tens are one. Punishment and mercy have fixed meaning. Clear rules attract merchants. Merchants feed the yam, the network of relay stations. A circulation begins that loves peace and pays back invested effort. Let's say it plainly. A yam is not a hole in the ground. It is stations every few hours' ride. At each, fresh horses, tack, a cup always in the same place, people who wait. Travel tablets work like passports. The courier dismounts. The next is already in the saddle. The letter changes rider, not its pace. Why does it work? Because reputation must arrive before the army, and a warning before foolishness. Kill an envoy, and the bill will arrive faster than the night. Open your gates, and you will receive trade and protection. In the yam, the small things matter most. A lace that doesn't fray. A cup always put back in the same place so you can find it in the dark. Oats topped up half a day earlier. That's how minutes are shortened. Minutes become days. Days become victories. Heroism matters. More important still is that it not be needed every day. Let's test the system in the field. Western Shia, the Tangats, dry lands, little water. Scouts count wells. 1 day without water costs more than 100 arrows. When a city sees the army not scatter for loot halfway through, when the yam breathes and orders are short, it chooses a deal faster. The reputation of mercy precedes the rams. The jinn, thick walls and proud cities. There too, repeatability wins. The yam feeds the march. The tens don't tangle under the ladders. The drums don't miss a step. Each siege is a lesson that can be improved. Who was late with the bridge? How many horse changes are needed? Where did panic spill? The answers can be unpleasant, but they turn yesterday's failure into tomorrow's plan. Meanwhile, Jamukha returns, again with allies, again with pride. When at last he falls into the hands of Genghis Khan's people, many want a spectacle, but the word stands. If life was promised upon surrender, there will be life. Law, not the crowd. That signal is stronger than revenge. Before we go west, set a few simple signs. Do not kill a messenger. This is the foundation. Whoever does it declares war. Do not take loot before the end. Otherwise you will eat victory half raw and choke on it. For treachery, certain punishment. Not quick, not flashy, but certain. For open gates, mercy and trade. It pays both sides. For water given to the defeated, gratitude. For tomorrow the roles may reverse. Now the West. First come the merchants, then the envoys. Otrar. The governor thinks he can do anything. He seizes goods, he kills envoys. He did not offend someone's feelings. He declared war on the rule that the messenger is sacred. The reckoning will be simple, but before the first order is given, someone at the yams slides pebbles on a board. There is not enough oats on the 6th leg. The wind is sanding over the track. We must shift the reserve from station 3 to 6. Priority to the envoy route, not to caravans. These are the micro-decisions that Donati make it into songs, and without which there are no great marches. Subutai and JB get a task. Go where the known grass ends. Check fords, passes, the soft places of the wall. Return with information. They don't make noise. They draw maps in their heads which someone then assembles into a plan, and the plan works because it was made from specifics. Let's step back to the beginning a moment, for clarity. Temujin's father, Yesugei, died because he was poisoned at a Tatar feast. After that death, the clan abandoned Holun and her children. That isolation unleashed an avalanche. Hunger, Vector's death, the Taichiut yoke, the escape through the river. From those wounds came stubbornness. Instead of begging fortune for mercy, one builds rule. That is why I speak of tens, of yams, and of short orders. Victories are made of these. So there's no doubt a few more images. A 10 is a group in which different clans act like one team. One can mend a stirrup in a glove. One counts the time till the watch change better than a shadow. One listens more quietly, but more closely. One is afraid, but stands. Yams stand so thick that heroism isn't needed for every horse change. Better more often and modestly than rarely and richly. Spoils are divided afterward, by merit. Reward goes to the one who held the line, not the one who shouted. Genghis Khan asks simple questions. Where is your 10th? Why doesn't the cup stand where it should? Why do you want a hero today if yesterday there was no oats? There is no irony in it. There is work. People see it and keep going because they know the questions come back on time. At night, the steppe splits at its weakest point. A wolf takes a goat, dogs bark, a man jumps up and doesn't know. Alarm or shadow. Drums glue the camp together. A short code, check without panic. By dawn, everything is back in place. Day by day grows the certainty that one can sleep because someone is keeping watch. Mercy returns often. Sometimes it is accepting an enemy who shoots better than your men. Sometimes it is sparing gates that open before the ram. Sometimes mercy is the absence of spectacle where a crowd wants blood. Why? Because consequences last longer than satisfaction. Cities speak of you differently when their people return home alive, with a bill they can pay. And what if someone mocks the rules? It happens. Someone kills a messenger after a warning. Someone loots a market during talks. Someone burns a yam station and boasts of it by the fire. Then the blade returns. Not anger, the return of the rule. After such a return, others listen better. A small review of this story's tools to keep them in mind like a pre-trip list. 3 words to an order, so fear won't drown out the meaning. Tens, mixed clans. 1 rhythm, responsibility for oneself and the weakest. Yams, stations every few hours ride, always the same order of things. Loot, after everything, and by merit. The messenger, sacred, because he carries tomorrow. Mercy, more often than anger, but never for murderers of envoys. Let's return to Jamuka once more. Why did he lose to the new order? Because in his world the name came first, then the merit. In the world of yams and tens, work and rhythm come first, and only then the story. Such a world wins against a crowd of cousins, each pulling a different way. And Yochi again. Why was the simple, "He is my son," more important than the rumor? Because it closed a loop that could have torn the camp apart. Stability is a quiet strength. Without it, the drums would play to empty places. There are winters that test people and yams. Snow clings to hooves. The wind cuts sentences short. Then it turns out the system is made of bone, not paper. Couriers ride slower, but they ride. Someone clears the road. Someone warms a horse's muzzle. Someone pours warm water on hands. Communication doesn't wait for spring. Spring waits for it. And now a signal from Otrar. The tablet, urgent, grows heavier. Genghis Khan says 3 things. Do not turn the letter back. Speed up the yams. Prepare the reckoning. People do not look for words. They look for the way. At the stations one adds milk. One tightens the girth. One wipes his hands on the same strip of cloth waiting in the same corner. Dust rises before anyone sees an army. Reputation goes first. Along the way, there are red herrings trying to throw us off. The courier vanished in a ravine. We check. He vanished because he chose a path invisible from the main track. I saw a great procession turning left. Those are merchants for the market. This is why the rule exists. We verify, but we don't lose the tempo. The clock ticks. The clock doesn't shout. It only measures. In many cities, gates open before the ram arrives. On the walls stand people who do not want to die for someone else's pride. Below stand people who do not want to freeze for the mere sake of marching. Their eyes meet, and they know that something unseen has won. Reputation. It doesn't tire faster than a horse. Genghis Khan rarely speaks of himself. He more often asks, what isn't he working? Why has that harness slipped a second time? Why did someone move the cup? Where did the spoon disappear so 3 pots take longer to boil? Small things? Small things glue day to day, and wars are won with days. Sometimes someone says, my clan never served outsiders. The answer is short. Here, everyone is an outsider to someone else's clan. In the 10, there are no outsiders or insiders. There are people. That man stays. In half a year, he remembers differently. Craftsmen come as well. They have no songs. They have hands and tools. They bring ladders, shields, crossbows, carts. They teach how to set stakes in mud, how to divert a stream to dry a meter of earth at a wall. From sand, they make a bridge. Then the drums do the rest. If you ask where the place for emotion is in all this, it is in people, not in words. In someone who is afraid, yet goes. In someone who puts aside anger to keep his word. In someone who gives up loot because he knows tomorrow he will gain more if he holds back today. In someone who offers water after battle though no one is watching. Before we pass through the western gate in the next part, I will close all loops. Temujin, the boy who will be named Genghis Khan. Yassa, the father poisoned at a Tatar feast. An abandoned family, hunger, Begtar's death. The Taichiut yoke and the river escape. Boorchu, Jelmi, Mukali, Subutai, Jabi, people who became the hands of the rule. The decimal system, short orders, yams and travel tablets. Spoils divided after all is done. Mercy more often than anger. The law of the messenger, reputation that arrives before wagon wheels. And Otrar, the spark that will light the West. If you are building your village, your team, your plan, you can start tomorrow morning. Ask, where is your yam? Who is your Boorchu? Whom will you turn from an enemy into a tool? What tablet will you hang above the door so that everyone knows what on time means here? 10 people, different temperaments, one rhythm. Short law instead of 10 pages. A supply line in which the work changes riders, not the tempo. And now return for a moment to the first image. The boy in the river. The yoke that bound movement will, in adult life, break into equal pieces and become a ring in a mechanism. The same weight spread across many begins to warm rather than choke. That is the whole secret of this story. Not miracle, not magic. Repeatability and people. If stories like this pull you in, leave a subscription. It helps us reach people who like to hear how rule turns into emotion and emotion into a plan. And for me, write one short word and sentence in a comment. Sacred or punish. What should happen to a messenger in a world where he brings difficult news? And why? If you want to hear the continuation, exactly how the Otrar affair went, how Subutai and Jabe traced the western roads, and how cities learned to open their gates faster than a ram reached the doors, play the next part. The drums are already beating, the yams are breathing, and the list of orders is short. Here we close the day and leave the fire so it won't die before morning. Subade and Jabi receive a task that sounds like a story for children. Go where the known grass ends. Check where a new dust begins. 2 men, 2 tumens at their back, but they go like shadows. They take no shouts with them. They take maps in their heads and the habit of looking a day farther than yesterday. They return with information that is like the stones of a bridge. The ones most needed are those in the middle. They tell of rivers you can jump only at the third shoal, of passes that lie in summer and tell the truth in winter, of people who swear by the sun by day and by the moon at night. Someone who was not on the expedition then connects this news. He connects it into a plan. And that is why the plan works. And did mercy ever run out? Yes. There are accounts without discounts. Someone kills a messenger despite the warning. Someone plunders a bazaar during talks. Someone burns a jam station and boasts of it at supper. Then the blade returns without poetry. It is not anger. It is the rule returning to one who pretended not to hear it. After such a return, others hear better. On the far side of the sand stand cities that speak in unison. We are eternal. Stone likes such sentences, but trade has other dictionaries. People come to the gates who do not want to die for someone else's pride. They want to trade, drink water, find peace. These people eavesdrop on reputation. When they hear that mercy is predictable, they start talking to their own walls. The wall does not answer, but the gate begins to behave differently at dawn. Genghis Khan sometimes stands quietly and looks at the plain, not because he likes silence, because in silence one hears what does not work. When he asks briefly, "Where is your 10th? Why doesn't the cup stand where it should? Why do you need a hero today if yesterday there was no oats?" There is no irony in this. There is work. And that, too, is why people follow him far. They know the questions return on time. And you? I will ask you now. Do you see in this story only horses and arrows? Or do you also see letters, cups, drums, and short sentences? Because they make the longest roads. Soft CTA. If you like stories where a rule turns into emotion and emotion into a plan, subscribe. This way it will more easily reach the people who need it, and you won. Lose the next part. Pause. Let's return to Jamuka. Their paths cross again. Old hurts walk beside new accounts. Jamuka knows the taste of victory and of defeat. He knows how pride smells beneath the cloak of friendship. When he is captured, many want a spectacle. Then it becomes clear what the law is. Not vengeance, predictability. A word once given, even in anger, weighs more than 300 lances. That is harder than anger. That is why it is worth it. And now another loop. The boy, the yoke, the river. Go back there a moment. See that every element of his later order casts the shadow of that scene. The tens are the yoke cut into equal arcs. The jam are the river broken into a ford every few hours of march. Mercy is the hand that loosens the knot. Punishment is the ice that says, you will not pass here a second time. When the signal about Otrar arrives, the tablet in the satchel grows heavier. Urgent. Genghis Khan raises his eyes and says 3 things. Do not recall the letter. Speed up the jam. Prepare the bill. People do what they have in memory. They do not look for words, only the road. That's what all the effort with drums, tens, and cups that always stand in the same place was for. Couriers start one after another. At the stations, someone pours milk, someone changes a girth, someone wipes hands on the same piece of cloth that always waits in the same corner. When the western gates see the dust, they will already know what reputation means. Along the way, red herrings occur. Someone says, I saw a messenger who vanished into a ravine. You go check. The ravine is empty, and the messenger is long gone. He just took a path that doesn't like to tell stories. Someone else swears he saw a great retinue that turned left. The retinue was a caravan of merchants, and the turn led to a market. In such moments, you return to the rule. We check, but we don't lose tempo. We go on, because the clock ticks. The clock does not shout. It only measures. After years, there will be many songs. Some about burning walls, others about shadows in valleys. The fewest about jam, tens, cups, and the cracked ear, and yet those make the difference. When someone asks, how to control thousands of people? The answer is shorter than you think. Give them a language in which an order has 3 words, a habit that repeats daily, and a justice one can touch. You will say, easy to speak from the victor's position. Good. Then listen to how defeat that teaches sounds. Dalen Balzut, clouds of dust, arrows that hiss like rain, a retreat that smells of ash. And then what? Not pretending nothing happened, not looking for culprits, looking for repeatability. Who ran faster than the drums? Who counted booty instead of people? Who failed the changeover? These answers are unpleasant, but they turn a man into a tool. And tools work long. Before one of the sieges, craftsmen come to the camp. They have no songs, they have hands and heads. They bring ladders, shields, siege machines of wood that learn to listen to the cut. They teach the tens how to plant stakes in mud, how to divert a stream so a river runs dry a foot closer to the wall. This is not a story about miracles. It is a story about people who turn dust into a bridge. And when the bridge is ready, the drums do the rest. In a certain city, the gates open before the ram reaches them. On the wall stand people in warm caps. Below stand people in furs who no longer want to freeze. They look at one another and know that this day was won by someone unseen. Reputation. It never tires sooner than a horse. Genghis Khan does not talk long about himself. He more often listens about others, about what pains the tens, about what got stuck in the jam, about where the spoon went missing, without which 3 pots take longer to boil. Does that sound silly? Silly things glue day to day, and wars are won by days, not hours. It also happens that someone comes and says he cannot serve because his clan never served strangers. The answer is short. Here everyone is a stranger to another's clan. In the 10 there are no strangers and no one of our own. There are people. That man stays. In half a year he no longer remembers that he once spoke differently. That's the rhythm. Loud at the beginning, quiet later. In a certain spring the steppe smells of wet hide and salt. Someone returns from afar and brings news. Beyond the river there are bridges of stone so smooth that a horse does not slip even in rain. In another spring, news arrives. Somewhere far away they are learning to build great crossbows that throw stones farther than the eye can see. The jam carry such news the same as letters, and someone at the end of the world is already drawing new lines in the sand. We are almost at the end of this east-west road. Before we pass through the gate of the west, I will close the loops we opened at the Onan. There was domestic normality, a basin of milk and morning smoke. A crack came, the yoke and the pain. There was an artifact, a wooden jam tablet that means more than a ram. There was procedure, tens, booty, drums. There was mercy, yebi, instead of a corpse. There was a reputation that did the job of 1,000 shouts. From small elements, a mechanism was assembled that does not need a miracle to work. It needs repetitions. If you are building your village, your team, or your plan, you can start tomorrow morning. Ask where your jam is. Who is your bo-orchu? Whom you will turn from an enemy into a tool. What tablet you will hang above the door so everyone knows what on time means here. 10 people, different characters, one rhythm. Short law instead of 10 pages. A supply line in which the work changes rider, but not the tempo. Responsibility spread thin and even. No one carries everything. Everyone carries something. All this comes down to the image you saw at the beginning. The boy in the river. The yoke that constrained movement has turned into the hoop of a mechanism. The same weight but spread over as many people as needed. The hoop begins to warm. That is the whole secret. Not a miracle, not magic, not a great man every day. Many people every day, small things every day, simple sentences every day. And on holidays, a long breath. In the end, I have one simple question for you. If today a journal with the missing pages of your story arrived at your door, would you return it to the owner or open it to look for answers? Write why. And if you want to go straight through the gates of the West and see how a wall listens to mathematics, how Otrar pays a short bill, and how reputation weighs more than steel, turn on the next part. There the letter will run even faster than fear, and the drums will play a rhythm already known by heart. Here we close the day and leave the fire so that it won to go out by morning. You remember the boy with the yoke and the simple system that worked even when the leader slept. Now that system wakes at dawn and sets out into the world. Instead of one valley, there are already 3. Instead of one fire, there are tens, hundreds, and thousands. The rule remains the same, short, clear, without long speeches, and before them a line of horizon where walls, coats of arms, and seals of foreign rulers thicken. In this part of the story we will go through the gates of cities that were never supposed to fall, and we will check how step by step a tool made on the steppe cuts the fabric of a civilization that laughed at horsemen. At the end there will not yet be a finale. We will stop just before it, when the air already sparks, and the last decision is only ripening. It is a short morning after the Kurultai. The leader's new name is heavier than the previous one, but the hand holding the reins does not tremble. The first test is to be a state that for years has taken tribute and returned no respect. Western Sia, a kingdom of sand and river, behind a wall that seems more lasting than wind. When the first scouts return, the reports are similar. A wealthy people, high walls, a market full of silks, and around the corner, impatient eyes of merchants who count the days to the next caravan. Can such a world be bitten without the teeth of siegecraft? It can, if instead of biting, you untie knots. It begins not with a drum, but with a question. How do you introduce the steppe into the rhythm of walls without choking? The answer sounds like an echo of childhood words, merit over name. Among the people there are a few who smell of smoke not from the campfire but from kilns and workshops. They are not proud lords but craftsmen and captives who know how to take certainty away from stone. They are given the first law. If you can do something, you live better than the one who only remembers his ancestors. From this simple coin come ladders, palisades, moving shields, and then something that in the field looks like a wooden monster with a belly full of boiling courage. Cities hear this before they see it. Reputation goes ahead. When the first gate trembles, it does not open at once. Inside there are councils where words sound like beads. Oath, tradition, honor. And outside stands someone who remembers hunger and cold by the Onan. Then comes an offer whose cost is lower than a storm. Instead of pouring blood into the wall, you can pour order into the city. When the gates finally creak, not only the army enters, but the rule as well. Merchants are not robbed of their hides. A rate is set. The guard does not vanish. From today, it answers to someone who writes down what truly matters. Many breathe with relief. A few weep. This is the first mini payoff. It turns out that mercy costs less than a ram, as long as mercy has teeth. If you value this kind of story and want to hear more about mechanisms that still work today, subscribe and stay with us for the next chapter of The Road. After Western Shia, the gaze goes farther, to the giant in a yellow robe. The Jin state is self-assured, accustomed to looking down on northern neighbors. On the map it looks like a great turtle. The shell is walls and great rivers. The soft interior is trade routes, warehouses, treasuries, and the pride of officials. The leader looks at the turtle and does not strike the shell. He warms its legs first. For several seasons, the steppe army does not behave like an army that loves battles. It talks with the terrain. It looks for fords that change character in spring, learns the lay of hills, and capitalizes on cold. At the moment when most shut themselves indoors, they are only just loosening their straps. A winter march across frozen rivers turns water into roads. That is the trick that needs no magic. It is enough to wait for the moment when nature suddenly serves instead of resists. When the ice crunches under hooves, the cities of Jin begin to hear a sound they do not know. It is not a siege song. It is the rhythm of logistics. Every column has a caretaker, not a spirit, but a man who does not shout. He counts. He counts feed for the horses, counts arrows and the days to the next jama. These are not heroic things. This is the kitchen of victory, and it is the kitchen that proves to be the difference between a dream of conquests and their accounts. In a few cities, the gates give way at once because someone has heard that for mistreating merchants the punishment is not symbolic. Elsewhere one must show that reputation has not only a face but a hand. Then onto the walls go heavy shields advancing like slow turtles, and they gnaw a place for the wind. In one such moment someone is tempted by pride. He proposes bravado instead of procedure. The leader is silent a longer moment, then reminds them of the short rule. The rule acts first, courage only at the end. In the other direction, it does not work. When Jin soil trembles in a few points, news comes from the west. Trade brings not only coins but also a sore. Otrar, a city smelling of spice and fur, suddenly changes its scent to gunpowder and smoke. A caravan that was meant only to pass is deemed spies. Goods disappear. People disappear. Someone thinks this trick will pass because beyond the horizon there is only grass, except that behind that grass stands the memory of that morning with the yoke. A bad move turns the Western ruler into an adversary who does not have the habit of waiting for apologies. That is how the road to Khwarazm begins. The leader does not go alone. He gives free rein to two men who like to work in a world where the map is not flat. Jebe has an eye that sees a fissure before it exists. Subedi has the patience of a rag that can soak up a whole river and then release it exactly where needed. The Western expedition resembles one of those stories told by the fire at which most nod and think it is literature, except that here literature has accounts. Instead of pressing the center, the edges are cut. Instead of chasing the main army, you lead it into the open. Two streams of men look like little, but it is not the number that must make the difference. Only the decision to chase no one blindly. In front of great cities, small theaters appear in which the opponent sees what he wants to see. Once he sees panic, another time weariness. Once he sees sloppiness, another time too clear an order. All so that he sends his best troops in a direction that does not matter. When he has done this, a heavier hand strikes where there are no guards left. In Otrar, the ruler learns that pride has a fixed pain threshold. The defense is long and bloody, and history loves such tales, because they are full of dramas and names of gates remembered centuries later in a single sentence. Yet for us, more important than names, is what the people of the system take from it. First, A city that relies only on its wall already has a crack within. Second, an army that can repeat the same method for half a year does not lose the ability to improvise. Third, a man who after victory can say fewer than 10 words to his officers and with those words settle the next season is more dangerous than one who gives speeches. Jebe and Subade go farther, to where the interpreter's language ends. They cross mountains whose names sound in the ears like stones falling down slabs of rock. In spring they appear in lands that did not know they were on the steppes map. The rulers there look at them like a swarm of insects and make the same mistake many made before. They confuse silence with a lack of plan, but silence is only a tool. From these roads they will return with the news that has already killed more than one throne. You can go around mountains if you know where water makes a bridge and where a bridge makes mud. There is a scene in this wandering that remains in memory. Beneath the wall of one of the cities stands a man who once shot at the leader and lives precisely because he was the best at what he did. Now he has the option to draw a sword and finish old business. Instead, he loudly repeats the old sentence, merit over name. The crowd does not understand. A few men in armor do. This is not just a slogan. It is a wall that moves from stone to necks. Whoever takes its weight goes faster. Whoever does not stays behind. This is another mini payoff. Mercy is part of the tools, but not to make a good impression. It is to build bridges over which the next orders will pass. When the Khwarezmian Empire cracks like a fresh crust of ice, another question appears over the steppe. If everything succeeded here, what next? Does the plan end when the treasury is full and enemies are silent? The answer is, as always, simple. The plan does not end at all. It only changes terrain. Instead of laying another brick, you must set another jama. Instead of building a monument, you must send a letter. Reputation must carry faster than anger. Therefore, letters go in 4 directions. To some, they flow with a proposal of common interest. To others, with information that honor is a beautiful word, but accounts hate poetry. To a third, go letters that are a warning. You do not have to read them twice. During this time in the heart of the camp, a second rule crystallizes that is worth remembering because it works today as well. A rule can be simple, but man is complicated. Therefore, the system must have inlets and outlets. The inlet is the place where you accept outsiders who truly can do something. The outlet is the place where you remove those who are a burden. It has nothing to do with cruelty. It has everything to do with work. A few great warriors understand this move more coolly than the opponents. Instead of arguing about honor, they prefer to win the next spring. Such a dispute is settled in 3 sentences, and the world goes on. The West already hears this melody, first through merchants, then through the sight of released captives who carry news. Sometimes someone flees the camp and thinks he brings a warning. In reality, he carries an advertisement. He speaks of service in which you can advance without a name. He speaks of law that is short. He speaks of punishment that is swift but predictable. Many courts shrug. A few begin to look into their stables and count saddles. No one yet knows that this melody will reach places wherein winter birds sing other songs. It is night after a long march. The fire burns low, and one of the younger men asks what was hardest. Not a battle, not hunger, not winter. The hardest thing is not to harden. Every system loves to turn into stone. First it is a blade, then it becomes a hammer, and in the end, a monument. To prevent this, the leader keeps ordering a simple ritual. What word in our law is needless today? What can be shortened? What eats time? This vigilance means that even if people increase, inside there is no more noise. That makes the difference on mornings when you must move, not discuss. It is important to write this in 1 sentence as our little recap. We have a simple backbone that does not crack at walls, can turn rivers into roads in winter, and carries mercy across bridges together with punishment. That is enough to pass from one empire to another without getting lost in decorations. We return for a moment inward, because the story that runs across the map is always born by the fire. Berta, whose name appears less in chronicles than it deserves, still does something like the work of a quiet bridge. When men speak of war, she speaks of home, and of people who must return to it with a sensible face. From such talk a future is born, that is not just a deposit of loot, but also a framework of order. Children grow and learn that you can rise from the table with the sense that tomorrow is not a lottery. From this lesson, new commanders grow for whom it is easier to speak in short sentences. In the north, there is also a game with those who once stood on the left side of fate. Jamuka and the other greats who bled in valleys now bleed in stories. Their fate is not a morality play, it is a lesson. The system does not tolerate people who want to be an exception to the rule, unless they bring a value greater than the risk. In a few moments, a single night decides. In the morning, you see a camp missing a familiar tent. For many, it is the end of rumors. For us, it is a reminder of a simple truth. Order matters more than legend. When the dust over Khwarazm has not yet settled, news comes from more western steppes. Someone not on any account strikes borders like a child a pot. Small tribes bearing proud names look for a clever space between old empires. The leader does not send the whole army. He sends a map. And with the map, people who can read without words. A few months later, at the edge of a world not in the plan, there appears a banner with a symbol known only to the wind. People look and do not know that this site is being written into the continent's memory. On this road, there are two short turns that look like red herrings. First, someone proposes an alliance that seems convenient. On closer look, it is a bag with a hole. Then someone else sends an embassy with gifts that smell like a mirage. Both leads last briefly but do what is needed: raise alertness, sharpen the rule, remind that gold without backing is heavier in a pocket than in a treasury. For a moment, we stop at the workshop where siege tools are born, not because we love technique for its own sake, because without these wheels and beams, the rest would have nowhere to stand. From simple logic, there arises a repertoire that changes the balance of forces. If a city relies on the belief that a horse cannot climb a wall and a man will not open a gate from inside, two beliefs fail it. The horse does not have to climb, and the man is inside precisely because he prefers order to chaos. In both cases, the weight of victory shifts from heroism to mechanics. In the east, somewhere deep within palaces that glide on shining floors, someone counts books and in the end raises a finger. That finger does not point to a solution. It only pretends to rule the map. Meanwhile, the map lives, while the bee, it moves together with the jama, with the horse, with the wagon, with the letter that left yesterday afternoon and this morning is already in another world. In this way, something grows that will one day be called Pax Mongolica, although in these days no one speaks so wisely. Merchants only feel that it is safer at night. Guards feel that fewer bribes vanish in dark sleeves, and caravans go through places that until yesterday were legend. It sounds like a fairy tale for adults, but the accounts are concrete. Short law simplifies disputes. Tens, hundreds, and thousands ensure that a commander knows whom he is speaking to, and that this someone knows to whom he is to pass it on. The booty has a stable logic, so no one wastes blood on guessing. Captives who can do things live better than those who only stand by their name. This is the mechanics that lets you jump from continent to continent without losing breath. We have another recap in one sentence. Thanks to simple rules, the steppe tool works among walls, rivers, sand, and in palaces that first sneeze at wind and then learn bows. After this long road, we return to the man who mounts his horse first in the morning and dismounts last. In his head, there are no golden frames. There are questions. What must be shortened? Whom must be released? With whom is it worth speaking today because tomorrow may be costlier? This economy of the rule is like a blade that does not dull if each evening you wipe it with one sentence. The leader repeats this act stubbornly, as if the weather depended on it. Perhaps it does. There comes a moment when one must look north and south at once. In the north there is cold that can provide roads. In the south there are cities that can provide knowledge. Between them lies a space from which we can extract a lesson for ourselves today. If you want your work to be self-sufficient, lengthen one river in winter and make it a road. If you want your city not to fall, remember that gates open less often thanks to force, and more often thanks to reputation. This is not a slogan. It is a shopping list. On the horizon, another great thing appears, which we will tell in the last part. It will be a trial not only for horses and men, but for the backbone itself. For every tool has its moment of truth when it meets an opponent who does not send envoys and does not count books, but changes the rules of the game while running. Before we get there, we leave you where the dust of the Western expedition still smells fresh and the jam are full of letters. From this knot spread roads that will lead to places where no one expected to hear a steppe melody. For today, it is enough to know this. The boy with the yoke built a mechanism that passes from desert to city, from rivers onto ice, from winter into spring without changing its heart. The heart is always the same. Merit over name, short law over long speeches, reputation before the army, mercy as the cheaper tool, and the question at day's end, what to shorten today so that tomorrow will be faster. Here we stop the story. One more chapter is before us. There we will return to the loop from the very beginning, and we will see the consequences of choices that now seem obvious and then will be costly. If you want to find your own path in this, think what one law you would carve on your own tablet, and then prepare for a finale in which the map will have more than 4 sides of the world. Imagine a bell in a stone city. It stops mid-strike, as if someone had laid a hand on it. At the end, you will hear how a simple mechanism from the steppe passes through the mountains, forests, and stone rivers of Europe, how it hits walls that believe in eternity, and what you can take from it into your own work tomorrow morning. But first, let us return to the source, to the boy who stood waist-deep in icy water with a yoke on his neck, to the habit that replaced a miracle, to short law. It is dawn. Moisture still hangs over the grass, and a horse's breath draws in the air like a white rope. After the great Kurultai, after the settling of accounts on sands, after days when the leader's voice sounds and falls silent by turns, comes the moment when the system must go on by itself. Not to pretend that the founder did not exist, to check whether trained hands remember the rhythm, whether the drums will play without the finger that gave the sign, whether the cup with the cracked ear will return to its place, though no one will remind it. The first road leads west again. The long arm, that patient pair of eyes and legs that can go without a song, receives an order drawn like a line on dry sand. Do not turn at the first scream. Do not believe the first panic. Do not chase shadows. On bridges and fords, do your work. In the jam, change horses, not conversations. Reputation is to ride in ahead of wagons. And it does. Winter rivers turn into roads. Forest tracks give back an echo as if the wood itself wanted to point the way. When one messenger dismounts from the stirrup, the second is already seated. When the second tightens the girth, the third slips the next letter beneath a leather flap. People are not important here. What is important is that the work changes rider, not tempo. The towns beyond the forests hear a new melody. First through merchants who return with whole families, then through captives who were allowed to live because they can do what others lack. Later through the guard on the walls who see that the others do not shout without cause. When gates hesitate, reputation lifts their arm. Mercy is cheaper than a ram. Punishment is quicker than a shout. It is enough that it is predictable. Predictable means fair. People understand this faster than stone. Someone will ask, is it not a myth that you can pass forests and mountains logically without miracles? The answer is simple. It is enough to accept the boredom that yields results. It is enough to repeat short sentences. Do not kill a messenger. Do not take booty before the end. For treason, punishment is certain. For open gates, mercy with teeth. For water given to the enemy, gratitude, not suspicion. It is enough that these sentences will be spoken in time and always the same. The system does not ask for beauty. It asks for repeatability. There are, however, places that want a different music. Stone that remembers only itself. A city that lives on pride more than on trade. A forest that likes to hide steps. There the long arm puts on gloves. Instead of one blow, 3 moves. Terrain as a tool. Winter as a road. Division of forces that counts not heroes but steady breaths. Men in furs stand on walls and have never seen war sound like an account. They look and feel that gates have their rhythm of weakness. Dawn is their thinner hour. Noon is their pride. Night is their half-sleep. There the drums strike. Their turtles go, heavy covers of beams and wet hides. Their ladders stand in places where stone forgets to look underfoot. On one of the fields, the world begins to speak in a new language. The opponent sees a withdrawal and tastes blood. He chases. The first line of steppe archers falls back as if ashamed of fighting. The second falls back even faster. The third disappears in a clump of trees. And then the earth becomes a mirror in which too heavy a faith in victory reflects. The psychological bridge breaks. Then emerges what it was about from the beginning: patience. For to endure 3 days of tension without a parade is harder than to win an hour with a shout. From this patience come battles that chroniclers close with one sentence, but people remember for generations. After such a road, the mechanism returns to the center and does something that rarely enters stories. It checks itself. Are the tens still mixed? Does the booty still go by merit, and not by the volume of a shout? Do the jam have dry oats before idle words? Does the cup still stand where it always does, so that the hand will not search for it in the dark? Has no one inserted an extra sentence into the short law because he likes words? There is no poetry in these questions. There is life. Whoever disregards them wakes with a monument instead of a tool. A monument chafes. A tool does the job. Freeze the picture. It is night in the camp. Heavy air of horse sweat and juniper. When the drums fall silent, you can still hear wood crack. A young warrior asks an old one what was the hardest. No battle, no winter, not to harden. Systems love to turn to stone. First they are a blade, then a hammer, and finally a plaque with an inscription. The only way to avoid this is to return every evening to the same 3 sentences and check whether any has started to gather dust. Merit over name. Short law over long speeches. Reputation before the army. Repeat. Put the cup back. Extinguish the lamp. Yet a day comes when the plaque will have to speak with a new voice. The previous voice fades not with a drama, but with physiology. Hunger, frost, dust, and years do their work. This is not a scene for a monument. It is a scene for an instruction. Who will read the rules? Who will guard the jam? Who will guard the tens? Who will see to it that mercy does not become soft and punishment does not become caprice? The choice falls to one who can repeat sentences without adding himself. That is a test harder than valor. To repeat another sentence without spoiling it is to breathe the system, not oneself. Such is continuity. At the same time, a plan grows that surpasses single names. A march that ties rivers, forests, and mountains into one line. Where in winter water hardens, roads arise. Where in spring mud clogs, bridges of patience arise. Where cities believe in the sanctity of walls, an account arises that calculates their hours of weakness. Please note, the plan does not ask for the number of heroes. The plan asks for the number of horses, for clean tack, for dry cups, for drums that do not lose the step. The plan asks for jam more often and more modestly than the heart would like to have richly and far. One day this plan will stand beneath Gothic towers and take away their certainty that they are the world's end. When the long arm stands above a great plain where towns have bone roofs and fields smell of grain, everything seems new. Only that is an illusion. It is still the same rules. Merit over name. Short law. Mercy with teeth. Predictable punishment. Jam that do not sleep, though people sleep. Tens that return together, though each has his own fears. In this repeatability lies effectiveness. The opponent looks and sees enemies. He does not see habit. And it is habit that wins. There are also moments that cannot be told dryly. Suddenly, a rain of arrows falls as if someone opened the sky. Suddenly, a bridge that looked sure breaks like a hard cheese. Suddenly, a man sees that a step set a second too late costs a friend. In such moments, it is easy to swear that a miracle would be better than habit. But a miracle ends with the witnesses. A habit remains. Therefore, even after a hard day, someone walks through the jamma and counts tack. Someone checks the bolts. Someone sets the cups straight. Someone fixes the cloth over the entrance so the wind will not spit in the face in the morning. Only then is it permitted to weep. Return for a moment to the image from years ago, to the river and the yoke. See how that yoke broke into the bows of the Thames, how the river turned into fords every few hours of march, how the hand that once loosened a knot now bears the name of mercy with teeth, how ice that said no became a road when it had to be crossed. Do you see? There was no magic here. Everything was a sequence of small, repeatable things, invisible from afar, decisive up close. When news of the leader's death leaves the camp, the world holds its breath. For some, it is a reason to open gates and count hope. For others, a pretext to send envoys with a smile. For the mechanism, it is a test. Do the jam carry letters just as fast? They do. Do the tens return together just as before? They do. Do mercy and punishment have the same weight in sentences? They do. Does the cup stand where it should? It does. In this ordinariness there is catharsis. Habit does what a hero would not manage alone. And now look at the consequences. Trade finds a new axis, because a seal means more than a guard captain's whim. Cities learn to open gates earlier, before the ram touches wood. Guards learn that a messenger is not an occasion for display, but a test of tomorrow. Thrones learn that an oath without an account is empty. Families learn that home returns to people who have short law instead of long quarrels. Armies learn that winter can be an ally and spring can be a trap. And we learn that work is won by what is daily, not what is for anniversaries. Recap in one sentence. The mechanism from the steppe worked because it was shorter than speech and longer than whim. That is all. Do not think, however, that this is a story about perfection. It is a story about the risk of hardening, about temptations that look like shortcuts but are holes in the ground, about gifts that shine but lack backing in the jam, about relationships that want exceptions to merit. Such an exception is like snow in April. Pretty, needless. It takes water from the plants. Therefore, from time to time, one must ask the same set of questions. What to shorten? Whom to plug in? Whom to unplug? Where to add a jam? Which sentence has stopped working? And answer briefly. In the last image before we close this part, I see a caravan. It goes at night when it is cooler and by day when it must. At the front is a messenger. At the end, two people who count but do not speak. Midway stands a station. In the station, a rope hangs so that it can be grabbed in the dark. On the table lies a stone moved the length of a finger. That means the horse has rested an hour too little. Someone sees it, someone corrects it. The caravan does not slow, but it does not race. It moves at its own pace, like a habit, like the language you use every morning to name things, like the cup that returns to the same place because the hand must find it without looking. Is this the end? I don't know whether this story ever has a true end. On the map, other roads will come. For people, others will come who must be told the same 3 sentences. For you, tomorrow you too will rise and choose between a miracle and a habit. The miracle is beautiful but rare. The habit is modest but certain. He wins who learns to like that modesty. And now my one simple question to you, which closes the loop of the yoke and opens your tomorrow. What one short law would you carve today on your tablet? 1. No footnotes. Say it aloud 3 times. Note it where you see it in the morning. And put the cup back in its place. The rest will come in its own rhythm. Imagine a winter that turns rivers into ladders. It is enough to know the calendar for water to become a road. At the end of this story, you will understand how an army that won 2 battles in 3 days could turn back not from fear, but from obedience to a rule. And what to steal from that for your own work tomorrow morning. But first a march that teaches Europe a new alphabet of war. Northern dawn is short and sharp. The horse's breath draws white lines in the air. The jam stand a day's ride apart, without ornaments, but in good places. One horse dismounts, another already breathes, a third has its girth tightened. The letter changes rider, but not pace. The seal smells of resin and smoke. 3 sentences lie on the tablet. Do not kill the messenger. Open the gate before the ram touches wood. Mercy has teeth. That is enough for the world to begin listening. The long arm has 2 shoulders today. Batu counts days to events. Subade draws bridges where others see only water. Winter rivers are obedient like well-trained horses. The Volga turns into a road. The forest returns the echo of steps like an old plank. When the first scout dismounts, the second is already seated. When the second tightens the strap, the third slides the letter under a leather flap. Nothing stands still. Everything circulates. Riazan pretends not to hear the knocking. Stone likes to pretend. Inside, they speak of honor. Outside, procedure works. First come the turtles of wet hides and beams, then ladders placed in the spots where the wall has forgotten to look at its feet. Fire appears where it was supposed to be wet. Smoke where the eye wanted certainty. The gate swallows air too loudly. Before dawn it whispers enough. We enter without a song. The counting begins. He who built will build. He who carried will carry. He who healed horses will heal horses. Merit over name. Booty by work, not by legend. This is not a new law. It is hunger dressed as a rule. Vladimir and Suzdal learn short speech. He who opens lives. He who counts songs pays in songs. Victory does not shout. You see victory in the papers from which bribes have vanished. In a market that does not die after dusk. In people who stopped asking for a miracle and started asking for a schedule. Imagine a night at a ford. Blackwater carries quiet voices. The key to the Watergate lies in the hand of a ferryman who knows the current better than his own dreams. The seal weighs more than a coat of arms. 3 trifles change history. An artifact leads to a man. A man leads to evidence. From trifles, entries are built larger than walls. This is not a cunning plan. It is patient work. Kyiv is a city of rivers. In winter it says come. In spring it says stay. We listen to the calendar, not to legends. First trade opens, then gates. At the end, pride cracks. Pride cracks loudly, but last. We enter as a shadow. Merchants receive seals. The guard receives gates by the hour. He who collected bribes yesterday tallies grain today. He who feared the night yesterday moves the lamp over the list today. Victory looks like a silence that works. Freeze the picture for a moment. If you stood on the wall and knew that mercy is cheaper than a ram, would you negotiate at night or wait till morning? A choice between a legend and a reckoning. In a world in which everyone speaks of honor, the one will win who can say tomorrow must run faster. Farther lies a field that looks like a theater. Legnica, coats of arms, cloaks, steel, dust. You see us less. The first move is wobbly. It is meant to be wobbly. The opponent inhales and chases. Then the bows enter. Not from too close, not from too far. Where the horse still runs and the man still thinks. Smoke confuses the horses, not the plan. When it clears, you see the rhythm. We do not go into a clinch. We want to win a battle, not a tale. He who sprints loses breath. He who loses breath loses decision. The battle ends more quietly than it began, and that quiet speaks the loudest. 2 days later, the Sajo River. It seems there is only one bridge. Pride loves ones. We set a second. At night, lower, quieter. In front, shields and bolts bind hands. To the side, the current carries planks over which steps pass. Dawn brings no answer. The answer is already walking on water. 18% of arrows remain. Enough. Battles end with breath, not quivers. At noon, the opponent's bridge is a cork in a bottle. It suffices to pull it out. Not so much wood breaks as order. When order falls, an army forgets its own name. Now something about what you do not see in chronicles. After such days, one goes more quietly. The scouts slip under Gothic roofs. Silence stands at the walls. There is no storming. There is looking. Where roads go. Which gates breathe at dawn. Which market does not sleep at night. We leave a trace like a finger in frost. They were and vanished. Why? Because of the clock. In the east, a voice in a tent stops breathing. A voice that read the rules louder than others. The news does not wait for spring. The jam carry it faster than fear. One word turns the horses around. Kurultai. Turn back. This is the hardest order for an army that tastes victory. It is no feat to go forward when the earth itself offers the foot. The feat is to turn the tumens when all the songs beg for a finale. The drums play the same rhythm, only the other way. The tumens turn as one man, because earlier they learned to breathe in one tempo. Is this a defeat? No, it is a victory over one's own tale. We return in a silence that is not sadness. It is the silence of work. People are counted, not trophies. Jam are tallied, not praises. What counts is how many times we resisted the temptation to finish the story with flair. What counts is dry sense. Along the way, we pass cities that opened gates before the ram touched wood. They have trade, water, peace. We also pass walls that defended legend. Smoke rises at noon and looks like an invoice. We do not speak long. Not because we cannot. Because time is now more important than fame. Freeze the picture again. Where in your work stands a bridge that seems the only one? Can you lay a second at night? Can you turn a march when everything screams onward? What one sentence do you say aloud then? What is your short rule? Without that rule, every victory will be an accident. Behind the map of battles, you see longer lines. Trade learns to walk at night. The seal begins to weigh more than a guard's whim. The messenger is no longer someone's toy. The jam tie far places like a simple cord. For a moment there lasts a peace that does not pretend sanctity. It is simply convenient for people who work. Merchants calculate profits, craftsmen calculate time, officials calculate fewer bribes. That is what order looks like, the kind no one will love in songs. And yet it holds the world. There are no ideals. There is the risk of sclerosis. Every system likes to turn into a monument. First it is a blade, then a hammer. At the end, a plaque with an inscription. The only way to prevent it is to return every evening to 3 sentences. Merit over name. Short law over long speeches. Reputation before the army. Say them aloud. Check whether any has lost its sense. Shorten it if it swells. Remove it if it does not work. Fix it if it harms. Then, in the morning, the mechanism rises light. And what about people? It is always about people. In the tens, claws are mixed. In rewards, booty and merit are mixed. In conversations are mixed the silence of those who work and the short speech of those who decide. In every jam, someone can stay awake an hour longer so the last horse gets hay. In every column, someone will count water before he counts gates. In every camp, there is a cup with a cracked ear that returns to its place at evening so the hand can find it in the dark. There is no metaphor in these trifles. There is life. Return for a moment to the boy in the river. The yoke was heavy and cold. The hand that loosened the knot does the same until the end of the world. It loosens knots in heads. It teaches people to speak more briefly. It teaches them to see water as a road. It teaches them to think of mercy as a tool, not a decoration. It teaches that punishment makes sense only when it is predictable. It teaches that the strongest gate breaks when it loses rhythm. Pause once more. Is this the end? On the map? No. For today, yes. The clock said, return. We obeyed. Because in this mechanism, the most important word is not forward. It is now. Sometimes now means go. Sometimes now means turn back. Short law is more demanding than a song. A song tempts with a tale. Law requires work. So we go back with the same rhythm with which we went forward. Scouts look to the sides in case someone tries to perform courage on empty fields. The jam work more often than usual. On bridges stand people of silence, not of words. In cities, seals remain. When we return, no one will give loud thanks. There will be work. There will be another list. There will be names that will take the drums tomorrow. That is true immortality, not a bronze statue, a habit. And now imagine a caravan that goes at night. At the front, the messenger. In the middle, people who count without words. At the end, 2 who say nothing, only check ropes. In the station, a cord hangs so that it can be grasped in the dark. On the table lies a little stone moved the length of a finger. It means the horse has rested an hour too short. Someone sees, someone fixes it. The caravan does not race. It goes at its own pace. That is the sense. That is how work functions that does not depend on a miracle. You may ask what remains in Europe after 2 April days. There remains the memory of smoke that lost horses and of a bridge that turned out to be a cork. There remains a quiet admiration for logistics, though no one admits it aloud. There remains fear of a shadow that vanishes when it wishes. There remains a lesson for those willing to take it. Winter can be an ally. Mud can be a trap. Honor without a calendar is an ornament. A seal without a word is a joke. A messenger without safety is a dead letter. And on the other side of the map, in the east, matters close that were waiting. The armor of Jin crumbles. The rivers of song sing a different song. The mechanism keeps its tongue short. Voices change. The rule remains. Grandsons carry it as an ordinary tool. Some add to it more bridges. Others make from it new roads. Everything lives as long as it is short. Everything returns to simplicity, to the cup that returns to its place in the evening, to the 3 sentences repeated aloud, to the breath that keeps step when songs beg for a leap, to the courage of turning back, to the habit of checking which word works and which only looks nice, to the question about one more bridge, to the consent to a boredom that yields results. You would like such a mechanism in your work. You have it. Start with 1 sentence. Say it in the morning. Check it at noon. Repeat it in the evening. Do not wait for a miracle. Habits win. Establish a short rule. Build 2 jam instead of 1 speech. Lay a second bridge when the first seems the only one. Learn to listen to the clock. At the height of power, have the courage to turn back. Thus, this part ends. The mechanism still breathes. Tomorrow it will rise before anyone manages to write a new song. If you wish, take one thing from this. 5 words you can lay like a tablet on the table. Say less, do more, return, and put the cup back in its place. The rest will come in its own rhythm.